All right, welcome to this special session of the Matthews Board of Commissioners. And today we're going to talk about Fire Station 3. We have a team from Samet here and Chief Kinnenberg. And Becky, do you want to start it off?
Happy to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. We appreciate your time tonight coming together. We have a lot of information that we will be getting through this evening. You'll be hearing from representatives from Samet as well as ADW, and then also the project management team of Story Project Management that we recently brought on board to do some additional work on the town's behalf related to this project. So Greg, if you don't mind sharing your screen, we can go ahead and take a quick look at the agenda. Yeah, we were going to introduce the teams as their turns came up, but we can do that. You want to go ahead and just wait till their sections come up? Okay, perfect. And Greg, if you can go to the agenda. So Samet and ADW are going to provide a pretty detailed project overview that will take a look at kind of the evolution of this design from the start and where it sort of sits today. And they'll also be talking about the Minority Women and Small Business Enterprise Plan that they have engaged with, as well as some estimates related to design development. And then Story is going to take over and talk about the budget review, some analysis work that they've been doing to look at the costs that we have been given and how do they compare to the market, as well as the construction cost analysis. They have done a tremendous amount of work really in just the last couple of weeks to help firm up a lot of the costs that are going to fall on the town's side of the ledger that are outside of Samet's construction costs, some of the work that is required to actually get the station up and running. So your connection fees and some of your permit fees and things like that. And we'll take a look at the funding breakdown and where we stand with available dollars, and then talk through next steps, which does include, if the board is ready tonight, there are some additional value engineering options that we would like board feedback and input on in order to provide that direction to Samet so that they can continue with their work. So first up, we are going to have the team from Samet and ADW, and if you all could do some introductions once you get started. And again, they're going to be talking about the project evolution and design progression, design review, the Minority Women and Small Business Enterprise Plan, as well as the design development estimate review. So with that, Chris, I imagine you'll be kicking it off, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. This is Chris Knight with Samet, the design build team, along with ADW. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. First of all, I would like to thank the town of Matthews and Story for continued cooperation and being very integral to the design build process. I feel like overall, I would like to state that this process is going well. From a feedback and a constant communication, I feel like that things are tracking on schedule and where they should be. Wanted to first highlight a couple things in terms of the project evolution and design progression. Our design review, our Minority Women and Small Business Enterprise Plan, and the design development estimate review. First, I'd like to say that, from a design perspective, ADW and Samet have done a tremendous job of bringing a building to life that has a very solid mark on the community that will be able to bring enduring value. Something that we have really wanted to pay attention to is something that has, excellent function, as well as, paying attention to budget and being very budget minded without stripping the building of its future value for the community. Secondly, I would like to say, tip the hat to our pre-construction team with Travis and Miguel and others who have worked tirelessly to make sure that we go out to the market and we have market tested the current design that we're going to talk about today. And that market testing has brought a significant light on where we are with this budget. And I feel like that what we're going to share with you today has a lot of good coverage. I think that we have reached out adequately to the local market, also to our minority partners, to make sure that we have solid coverage on the project. I think that from a design perspective, there's elements of this building that will emulate its surrounding neighborhood. We made an effort not to cheapen the look of this building so that it does really integrate itself well into the surrounding neighborhood, because this is a firehouse that will be a part of that neighborhood and the surrounding houses that are in the vicinity. And we want to make sure that this design doesn't stand out in contrast with its surrounding neighborhood. So overall, I feel like that we are on the right path. We do have more work to do, though. We still are continuing to find ways to add value to the project, as well as driving costs out and being responsible with the town's funds. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Travis and talk more about the specific design.
Like
I'm
to
sorry.
interrupt for a moment before you go on. I'm looking through this packet, and several weeks ago, we had a meeting where we discussed simplifying the design. I don't see that in the packet. Are we going to talk about that at some point?
We have multiple value engineer options that we want to review today.
Does that
And
include simplifying the design, or does that include staying with the same design?
I think holistically, I think that the function of the design right now is in a place where any major levers or any simplification or reduction will adversely affect the flow and the function of the building. So as of right now, we do not have a alternate design plan that we're here to share with you right now.
I'd like to bring up that that was not what three of us at least asked for. This is not.
Okay, I'm sorry. We need to wait on a mic there.
This is not the direction that we had agreed on in this meeting. And I realized that it was only three commissioners in this meeting, but I did ask for a comparison of this project and another one, a simpler design. I would like it to be clearly on the record that this is very disappointing. And it shows that the entire team here is not respective of all commissioners' input on this project. I'm not supportive of moving forward in this fashion.
So maybe I wasn't clear on the question. Is the question, do we have comparative projects that we can compare to this project in terms of cost?
No, we asked you to come back with a simple building, a simple design using previous projects and come up with a cost comparison of what it would look like in this fashion and what it would look like with, things that we've talked about before, fewer corners. I don't remember the specifics, but what we asked for was not moving forward with this project. I made it very clear in that meeting that I would not support this fire station without a lower cost station comparison, not value engineering.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about a completely different building than what we currently have, because I want to make sure that I'm clear.
I mean, I said it and then Commissioner Urban repeated me. The town manager repeated it back. I mean, we were,
Yeah, just for the record, I'm on, right? Okay. So that was a meeting. I've had a interim meeting since then, not with Samet, but I had it with Story, and we went through scenarios and talked to costs of different projects and things of that nature. So going back to yours, I don't know the precise meeting minutes, but there was a discussion of the theoretical project off to the side as sort of like in a vacuum. Could we look at some options, or we could look at something more in a generic sense? I don't know what we walked out of that room talking about. What we did talk about, I guess, is generic the better word for it, or something as a comparison to, but I didn't bring it back up with the Story conversation because it wasn't relevant to our meeting in that aspect. But I can say for the record that Renee is correct, that she did ask or make that ask regarding that station.
So the follow-up conversation that that I had with Samet and other staff members recently, I think Story was on the call too, was that the work hadn't been done to find that other design that was simplified. That I think the closest we thought we might have would be the Harrisburg design. Was a fairly simple design. Rob, we talked about was it the Harrisburg station was the one that we discussed? But that there were some design elements to that project that we didn't think worked operationally. So what we determined that we would do would be to have this meeting to talk about where are we with this project, and then if it's the will of the board to put the work into costing an entire other set of designs, then that work could be done, but that would be outside the scope of the existing budget. And so that's work that can be done, but we would be looking for the majority board direction in order to do that.
Thank you, Becky.
that was not brought up in our meeting. And so let me just speak for my words. I am feeling very unheard and not listened to. It was clear walking out of that room that there was direction going forward. You know, my position sitting here is to be heard and to be a representative. The best word that I can come up with to describe this is absolutely disrespectful.
And I just want to say that that's certainly not the intention. What we're looking for is majority board direction in order to move forward.
Ms. Hoover, you have a comment? Commissioner Hoover, I'm sorry.
I completely understand Renee's disappointment of not being heard or listened to. It would have been nice also if everyone on this board would have been included with meetings with Samet before this meeting, because I'm hearing 3 went to a meeting and now, oh, this special, whatever Renee was speaking about a special design, I had no knowledge of. So there, I also feel disrespected. So we can go that route with it as well. We're always told it's always the board decision. So it would have been nice if everyone had been given an opportunity instead of just 3. And that's just my point of view. This is nothing against you guys. I just, responding to what's been said here.
Yeah, I think the intent was to share, and we initially had separate meetings and small groups, and then we decided to have this one big meeting. So there was absolutely no intent to make any decisions without the entire board being involved. But all that being said, I would like to suggest that we move forward with the presentation tonight, and then we'll get feedback from the commissioners that are still here. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. This is Travis Festo with Samet Corporation. I work in pre-construction and have done the estimating for this job. And the first thing I wanted to kind of start with is really just from the beginning to discuss through the design progression, the elements of this project and how it evolved. And we start with what we call the request for qualifications of this project. And at that stage of procurement, it includes general project parameters and qualification criteria with the goal of a 10,000 square foot facility. As we progress that design, we move into what's called programming. And during programming, that is when the end user clarifies their needs, goals, and facility objectives. That's when facility size and function are identified, and we begin the process of feasibility studies. Fire Station 3 determined early on the functional needs for the fire apparatus support and multi-purpose community functions to serve this community for the lifetime of the structure. And through that, we had an inherent growth in square footage. And at one point, I believe we were at 13,565 square feet. And being cognizant of the associated cost risk with that, as a team with ADW and the chief, we dove into construction considerations that are outside of what we may coin traditional fire station assemblies. A few of those I want to point out is we pursued a light gauge metal framing wall system to support this structure with wood trusses. We analyzed mechanical systems such as dedicated outdoor air units to mitigate humidity, and we identified ways to save money by not using such equipment and working within more traditional methods to save cost. We analyzed the roof structure, hip versus gable trusses, and which could have a better cost benefit for the project. We also looked inside the building. What walls were CMU masonry interior walls and what could go as a light gauge metal stud wall to save money. And then as you move to the outside of the facility, you also have the exterior facade. We're accustomed to the city of Charlotte or other municipalities that are utilizing all CMU and masonry veneers on their structures. And we try to strike a balance in cost with that by using as much fiber cement and more economical products where we could for this facility. And so as we moved into the schematic design, that's when sketch drawings are identifying the spatial needs. It's also accompanied with general narratives of the systems and components that will make up the building. And through that value-added design process, we were able to reduce the overall square footage to just under 800 square feet less from where we started, while maintaining all the functional benefits that the facility needed to have. During that exercise, from our first pass at a schematic level to the final pass, we saved $430,000 through the team's efforts to reduce cost. I'm going to now pass it to Gina Moore with ADW to discuss the current design development renderings and drawings.
Hi, I'm Gina Moore with ADW. This would be our design development site plan. There were a lot of iterations that went through this site plan to get where we are right now. Some having to do with the future NCDOT project going on right in front of the building that resulted in us kind of coming up with the final layout with the access drive to the parking on the right side of the street to avoid some future turnarounds that they're going to have. So this would be the overall site plan with the fire station, the community kind of side of the building, or the more public side would be kind of facing the main parking on the right side, split by the apparatus bay with the drive straight out to the street for the trucks. And then the more residential fire station part of the project would be on the left. We do have provisions for a future storage building behind the facility. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. This would be the floor plan that we ultimately ended up with at the end of design development. You can see on the right side, we do have the front porch entrance to kind of the more public community side of the building. We have a community room there. We have conference facilities and then some individual restrooms to serve that. Separating that from the apparatus bay, we have some of the service areas that would assist the firefighters in the apparatus bay area. We've got like turnout gear storage, decon areas, so forth. And then we have the 2-bay apparatus bay right then there in the middle with concrete masonry unit walls and brick veneer. Then on the left side of that apparatus bay, that's more the residential portion of the fire station, where they have a day room for congregating, kitchen, dining room. There's some office areas. We have the locker room, restrooms, and then an exercise room in the back and the bunk area to the far left side of the project. Next slide. This is representing 2 mezzanines that are built kind of up in the roof structure of the project to give them some additional training and storage areas. Next slide. This is the front elevation of the station, dominated by the apparatus bay in the middle with the community wing over to the right side and the residential wing over to the left. And you can see it's got more of the character of the residential neighborhood using the fiber cement siding, some gable ends, sloped roofs, asphalt shingles to keep the costs down, and yet having some features like the awnings to shade the windows. Next slide. This is just another view of that same front elevation, but from looking at a different angle. Same front elevation, but you can begin to pick up the entrance to the community part of the building on the right side. This is the back of the building, which has brick returning along the left side. And you can see we've used more of the fiber cement siding on the back parts, like the exercise room and so forth. Next slide. And this would be that entrance to the community room on the right side of the building. This is the far left side. This would be like a portico porch area for the firefighters outside of the kitchen and day room area, grilling where they're cooking meals and so forth. Just an overall kind of more aerial view of the project. Back to you.
Thank you, Gina. One thing I'd like to point out as we dive back into the design progression is to hit on the key design milestones of any project. That's the schematic design, the design development, and then the construction documents. And at each of those key stages, information is getting more and more prevalent to our project as we progress. And what's really important is when we engage the subcontractor market, at that point, we're identifying the true market cost of the job based upon the individuals and companies that are going to install that work. And at a schematic level, we engaged key trades to ensure that we had budget alignment from day one, because we knew there was budgetary constraints and we wanted to have that correct. And so one thing that I want to point out is as we move in to the design development stage, that's when the detail work really kicks in. That's when we begin identifying the assemblies, materials, equipment, and the system specifications of the project. And at that point, there's a deep dive into all facets of the project to identify cost-saving solutions. But most importantly, especially for the design build delivery method, it's how we mitigate cost increases from the initial conceptual assumption to what we know today as the design progressed. And so as we look at this list along the design development for ads and credits, I want to point out that these aren't per se costs that we ever incurred in our budget, but I want to list them because there's cost that could have incurred in the budget had we not as a team collaboratively worked to eliminate those costs from day one. A few of those things that I want to point out is, at SD to DD through council direction, we did add additional brick veneer to the front facade. We made some upgrades to the rear overhead doors as well as additional flagpoles. But on the reverse side of that, we also modified the dumpster enclosure to realize savings. We also changed the brick veneer sizing to reduce cost and find savings. We also are utilizing PEX, also known as a PVC or plastic pipe, for the water supply system in lieu of copper. That was one of those items that we never even considered it. We immediately worked towards finding ways to save money in lieu of picking a more expensive alternative. The same applies to using tank water heaters in the facility. Tankless is really advantageous because you get instant water on demand that's hot, and everybody loves it, and especially the fire folks do, right, after a long day. But those are costs that we mitigated from day one by identifying the most economical fashion and pushing the design towards that economical option. Another item is we value engineered the mechanical equipment. I had referenced earlier to the outdoor dedicated air system to bring fresh air into the facility. We worked with Optima Engineering to identify solutions that were more cost effective than just running with an outdoor air system. We also modified the light fixtures. Through our subcontractor feedback, we were able to identify alternatives that met the design intent, but at a lower cost. Another big item here that the team worked tirelessly to ensure that we were in alignment with was NCDOT. With that future work along the highway, there was potential for major implications of how it could affect cost on our job, but we worked collaboratively with NCDOT to mitigate that risk up front and to reduce the opportunity that NCDOT would require any requirements of us during construction of our project. We also had worked with our design team in Charlotte Water to alleviate a jack and bore scenario of Highway 54. That was cost that we never had to realize. Another important one was maintaining site work savings that we got from day one, and that's by utilizing a balanced site and ensuring that all of our grades work out. So we keep as much dirt on site as we can, and we grade the site and prepare it in a fashion that is most economical. We also studied the amount of parking spaces that we had and really scaled back and tried to tighten up how little can we do with and get smaller parking lot in that. And so as you look at these numbers, it's not intended to add up perfectly. What I'm trying to show is how we mitigated cost increases as we work through the design actively. And as you look at that budget reconciliation, we're up $61,000 from our schematic design estimate, and we saved just under $600,000 in potential risk in the design. As we move from design development, sorry, I was just going to point out the last few there. Thank you, Greg. As we move from design development into construction documents, those are the final detailed drawings and specifications. They'll become the contract documents as well as what we use in the final bidding of our guaranteed maximum price. And then from that point forward, we move into construction and construction administration in the field. And so moving to the next slide, I want to point out the subcontractor pricing that we received to validate cost on this project. As I mentioned, it's critical in every project, and we canvass the subcontractor network here in Charlotte and identified costs from start to finish to supplement the design development budget. The first piece that I want to talk on is our Minority Women and Small Business Enterprise Plan. I'll reference that as MWSBE moving forward. Back in March of this year, we held our contractor development series, which was 4 different outreach events, some held here as well as online, that discussed with our trade partners topics such as pre-qualification, risk mitigation, financial literacy, bidding, and estimating. The ultimate goal here is for SAMA to have a successful project and to ensure that we're elevating not only our MWSBE trade partners, but every contractor that works for us in the city, and our success is your success. Moving into the next slide, during our design development estimate, we solicited over 225 bid invitations to our trade partners for pricing feedback on this project. MWSBE contractors invited to bid was over 80% of our trade packages. Sam had also hosted a personal internal outreach event to introduce MWSBE contractors to future opportunities. And one of those projects that we extensively talked about and highlighted was the Matthews Fire Station project. So during design development, MWSBE companies that are utilized in our estimate is at 38% of our trade packages. And over 80% of our competitive numbers in those trade packages are local to North Carolina. And 75% of those competitive numbers in Samet trade packages are local to Mecklenburg County. A few things I want to point out here about, well, why is that not 100%? This always comes at a cost that we are juggling the best value for the project, the lowest responsive bidder, and someone that could be from out of our municipality and region. And so just one example I'll give is at a design development level, we have plenty of steel contractors in the city, of course. The competitive bid was from Alpharetta, Georgia, and we're going to use that bid to reduce cost on your project. The other thing I want to point out is our MWSBE participation goal. Our project goal is set at 25%. At a design development level, we were at just over 19%, with our guaranteed maximum price goal being 25% or higher. And I don't want you to linger too long on, well, you missed your 25% mark. At a design development level, there's a lot of missing pieces from our subcontractors that we can't fully fill in those gaps for. But I can tell you that if we're at 19% at DD, we're going to be in fantastic shape at this final round of pricing. And so an example of how that works in the reporting to kind of shed some light is we utilize our first tier subcontractors. It's the prime contractor. We'll use concrete as the example. The concrete contractor will also have subcontractors underneath him. He may have rod busters that place the reinforcing steel. He may have a finish crew that does all the concrete finishing. A lot of times at a DD level, they haven't identified those particular trades per se. And so we only have a select representation of our second tier participation here. And I have full confidence as we move forward, it will be at 25% or higher. Moving to the next slide, this is an in-depth ledger of our design fees that we're carrying on Samet Corporation side of the ledger. Since this is design build, we are carrying the design fees for architecture, structural engineering, civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering. So as you look at this compared to our SD to DD budget, you'll see that we're down 7,000, but I do want to point out a few nuances as to why that is. The first is our geotechnical report that was performed at the beginning of this project. We reconciled actual cost, so you saw the savings of what we used with Terracon providing that service. The next item down is ADW Architects. The architectural design services are based off the cost of the project. So it is moving based on the cost. And so since we were up 61,000, you see the associated $6,000 increase for the value of the job. And then moving down to material testing, or what we would call third-party verification and testing in the field, we move that cost to the town of Matthews side of the ledger, which is the best practice of the industry moving forward. And it is just a reconciliation of that. So I wanted to point those out as to how we got to that number. The next slide is.
Excuse me, can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah. Which ones did you say you moved to the town?
At the very bottom.
Material testing.
Yeah, at the very bottom, Mayor, material testing during construction, we have moved to the owner side.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Moving into the next slide is our budget summary. So as you can see, at a schematic design estimate level back in March, we were at $7,824,100. At today's price for our design development budget, we are at $7,885,484. I want to point out that that's less than a 1% cost increase. And I was awful proud of the team that put forth the effort to do that. As we just talked about the design progression, there is a lot of risk and unknowns at a conceptual schematic level. And the fact that the team was able to keep the budget where it was is a testament to how much we worked on this. Moving to the next slide. I know this is really busy and hard to see, so I'm just going to briefly walk everyone through it to try to help you understand, and we'll address this later in the night as well. This is our cost management log. And at the top, you'll see our original design development budget. You'll see the current accepted cost management savings. Items that are partially accepted, we identified two, and then you'll round out the grand total. And I do want to point out that that includes the reduction in the design fees as the cost goes down. So when you add those numbers up, that $4,300 that you're missing there is in the reduction in design fees. We have this organized by the items that are pending. Pending means there's no decision that has been made yet, whether it is accepted, meaning to become a part of the project, rejected, meaning that it's a no-go and we would like to not pursue it in the project. And then partial is maybe we can identify some kind of partial savings from this, and we'll have to analyze that. It's not a full sell situation. Another piece to that I want to point out on this cost tracker is we have also listed some of those costs that we worked tirelessly to mitigate during the development of the design so that it didn't affect the cost of the project. So some of the items that are rejected, we want to point out that it was a conscious effort for us to ensure it did not impact the project moving forward. And just to finish that up before I turn it over to Story, I do want to point out that at the design development level, we offered up $335,000 worth of considerations for savings.
This to our clients. Sorry. I'm here tonight with Austin Balzer, who's a project director on our team, as well as Greg Lokaitis, the project manager. And our task over the last several weeks has been to evaluate the scope of the project based on the design as it has been designed, as well as the estimated cost of the project and the process for which both of those have been derived. And so the next few slides are just some information we want to share about the analysis that we've done to date, and hopefully give this board information to be able to move forward. Austin, I'll turn to you.
Thank you, Josh. All right, so what you see on the screen here is your overall total project budget review. Design, build, services, and fee. That is the design and the professional fees associated with the design team as part of the design build contract with Samet. It ensures Samet's pre-construction fees for navigating the design process and providing cost input throughout that process, as well as the overall brick and mortar to construct said fire station number 3 in the town of Matthews. Looking from project management fee down to contingency, those would be considered our owner's costs. So project management fee is simply our fee for the duration of the project. We understand that is, only to take place currently in the pre-con phase, and then once project acceptance or either direction is given, the remainder of that fee then is applied to the overall budget. From information and technology, furniture, fixtures, and equipment development fees, So those are the items that are put into your building to make it functional. So your IT, your low voltage wiring, your speaker systems, your equipment, your beds, your your furniture, your kitchen appliances, and then moving into development fees. Those are your permit fees, your utility fees associated with Duke, Piedmont, and then moving into Charlotte Water tap fees. Those are all considered your overall project development fees. We do understand that from the scope of the project, we have an ad alternate for a metal building on the backside of the site. Salmon is currently carrying a gravel foundation for that building, but in talks with Chief Kinneberg and Chief Davis, there's potential to procure a prefabricated metal structure to use in that as the ad alternate portion of the project. And then, as Travis mentioned earlier, materials testings and inspections was moved into the owner budget. So that, along with commissioning of the building, makes up about $45,000. And we're currently carrying about a 2.1% contingency for the project to capture any miscellaneous issues we run into. Brief description of one being unsuitable soils. There are only so many bores that can be done to test the soil. And sometimes in the corner of a building, you may run into an unsuitable soil where that will just need to be remediated and infilled with the proper foundational structure. So those are to kind of catch small things throughout the project that pop up, giving you a grand total of $9.154 million or $717 a square foot for fire station number 3. And we're going to dive into these a little bit more to kind of provide some backup and some analysis for each one. Any questions or concerns with the overall project budget? All right. Thank you. So we're performing
Well, let me just say, I think we're all concerned about that bottom figure.
Understood. And Mr. Urban and I ran in each other in the back room, and he said, "I'll take your trash as long as you have good information to provide me." I said, "Sir, I have neither good or bad information to provide you, only the facts." So that's simply what we're here today, is to be extremely transparent with you all on where the market is currently driving our industry and how we can, input measures to reduce costs in the future. Some design fee analysis that's currently ongoing, and I say currently ongoing because we are pending some information from Steel Creek Fire Station number 3. And we all, Chief Rob and I have also reached out to Mecklenburg County regarding some design fees associated with several of their projects. So currently, ADW's architectural fee is $413,905. That is 5.8% of the construction costs. That is outlined in the pre-construction agreement, that there will be a set fee for the overall total cost of the project from a construction standpoint. If you include the complete design fees for the design build contract, you're at about $599,905, which is 8.4% of construction costs. And what I mean by complete design fees, you saw them earlier up on the screen. They are mechanical and electrical, plumbing engineering, civil engineering, geotechnical reports, et cetera. So the engineering that goes into the actual design that then SAMIT translate into an overall construction cost for production. So the fire station that we were able to reach out to and provide a comparable to this project was the Mint Hill Fire Station, which was designed by Creech and Associates. Their architectural fee, and that is solely their architectural fee, no sub-consultants under that, was 5.9%. As mentioned earlier, we're still investigating this, but as you can see on the screen, 5.8 for our current fire station number 3 and 5.9 for a previous one are currently trending in a favorable fashion. So moving into the large portion of this project, the construction cost analysis. So what you see on the screen is a representation and comparison of 10 other fire stations built in North and South Carolina. I'd like to note real quick, the fire station on the far left is fire station number 3 for Matthews, And the project 1 and project 2 are comparables that Samet has provided. We've done further investigation with our local market and competitors of Samet to provide you cost comparisons for 7 other fire stations in the North and South Carolina area. To note, all of these costs, considering the projects have been completed between 2017 and 2023, have been escalated to today's 2023 dollars, which we will get to here shortly. But using the national average escalation index, our cost ranges are roughly 438 to 735, with an average cost per square foot of all 10 of those fire stations at $567.48. And our fire station number 3 is currently coming in about $9 shy of that at $558.42. Any questions before we jump into kind of how the escalation?
Yes, where are these fire stations?
So we have a separate list of fire stations. They're in Huntersville. They're right in Greenville, South Carolina. I have a complete list that I can review with you. We were asked by several of the contractors to keep it private, even though they are public jobs in our reporting of their projects.
I'd just like to know that they're local because you're using the national average escalation index. I don't want to compare our fire station to one built in Montana, for instance, or.
All in the Carolinas.
All in the Carolinas.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yes.
what I wanted to know.
Yes, sir. All right. So moving into,
Pause there for a second. I think, the big part of our analysis was to assess design fees as they've been proposed. And I think what our analysis shows is that those design fees are within the market range for what we would typically see for this type of project. And I think similar to that, the biggest part of our analysis was to study the construction costs. And we think based on the scope that's been designed, this project from an estimated cost perspective is right within the range, if not a little bit below what the average cost of comparable projects in the Carolinas. And so I think those are sort of 2 key points within our analysis to say your design fees appear to be within a reasonable range for this scope, as well as the construction costs.
all right. Moving into construction escalation index. So this graph shows the last 15 years or 12 years from 2011 to 2023 of the escalation of, last 5 years. The escalation in our market, as you can see in 2020, is affected by COVID and the subsequent economy since then. How this comes about. So you'll see on the bottom portion of the screen, you'll see Mortenson, PPI of non-residential building construction, RLB, Turner, the average, and then Rogers Builders. So Mortenson is a top 20 builder developer in the United States. PPI of non-residential construction, that is the producer price index provided by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And RLB is Ryder Levitt Bucknall, which is a private national cost index firm. And then Turner Construction, as of last year, was the Engineering News Record ENR number 1 top 100 contractor in the United States. The orange line there that you see that kind of surpasses the rest, that is from a local Carolinas based regional contractor, Rogers Builders. That represents Rogers Builders' cost escalation as it relates to their projects over this shown timeline. So as you can see, the Carolinas ride slightly above the national average. And so that's why we chose to use the national average instead of just one from the Carolinas, because it was a larger pool to pull from. Any questions? This is just a separate representation of what was previously shown. This shows each one of those parties year or quarter over quarter percent cost increase for construction. As you can see, again, via 2020 into 2022, the numbers start to climb pretty drastically, and we have since started to level off back to a normal escalation amount. Any questions here?
All right.
So in summary, construction costs, fire station number 3 is less than the average of 10 other comparable local fire stations in the Carolinas. And the design fees are in line with other local market driven projects, with an asterisk there that we are still hunting down a few more local fire stations as comparables. So as proposed, Story PM found Salmon ADW's projected construction costs and design fees for fire station number 3 to be cost verified and in alignment or below comparable current market costs. We will obviously continue to seek out additional cost savings and cost containment efforts for both construction and owner-related expenses on behalf of the town of Matthews. Any questions before we jump away from the design and construction analysis of fire station number 3?
Yes, is your summary there on construction costs saying that it's less than 10 other comparable? That's not related to what you showed on the graph on the previous
No,
slide.
that's a typo on our part. It should say less than the average cost per
Okay.
square foot of 10
Okay.
other
Because
comparable
it's
contractors.
not less than,
Yes, it's not less than 10,
right.
less
Okay.
than the average. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And oftentimes we look at cost per square foot because you do vary in size based on equipment and, operational needs within the building. And so that sort of nominalizes it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question?
Moving into owner cost review. So you saw this on the previous page, but it's kind of lumped into one whole number of 1.268 million. Any questions or concerns? Same material previously shown.
Jumping in here. So, just so we're catching up, and you may need to explain what all falls in the owner's cost. Not that I don't know what it means, but you may have lay people in the audience trying to understand, because your average cost was 567 for us. Your delta was 717 a square foot. So that was $150. Let me just, where's my numbers? Where are we at for the building as a whole?
So the building as a whole, you're at
is it-
9.1.
No numbers per square foot. 558.
558 for solely
Okay,
construction.
okay. So 558, 717 minus 558. So the delta is $159 a square foot. From 717.
The 717 is the entire project
Gotcha.
cost. Correct. So
717 minus, so it's 159 delta. Still with me?
yes, sir.
Okay. Times the square footage. 12,771. So it's about a $2 million difference, and we're at 1.2. So what are we, you're going to get to the missing 800,000?
That's your design fees.
So the design fees were at 35. What are the design fees?
There we go. Right there.
So
So-
what am I taking out?
So our analysis comparing to the 10 other stations was just for the construction line item that you see there.
Okay,
It did not include the design and professional fees or the pre-construction fees specific to what's going to be in Samet's agreement. So we looked at design fees separately, which is that first line item. And then we looked at construction costs separately, which is the third line item.
so you're telling me then that the 1268,929 divided by the 12,771, we're talking about plus or minus $100 is on the other side of the fence.
For the owner's cost.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's roughly
Okay.
1.3.
I think first of all, backing up over numbers has confused the problem. And then it's the differentiation of owner costs and building costs, and it's getting a little wonky here. If I'm having a tough time following, sure.
Yeah.
I can imagine where everybody else's head's at.
So I think from this graph here, if you drew a line just below the fourth line down that says construction, if you drew a line across your paper, everything above that line is what is within Samet's contract, which is
Okay.
construction and design. Everything below that line is what's being carried in the owner costs.
And so, and we're talking all in at this stage in the game, and at some point, we're gonna be talking about add alternates and adds deducts, performance bond and things of that nature. Right? We still got that left. Okay. All right, keep going.
Correct. Yes. Thank you. So this is a quick breakdown of your furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So owner furnished items being gear, lockers, weightlifting equipment, laundry room, kitchen equipment, et cetera, along with signage. Samet currently does not have a monument sign carried in their budget. They have the infrastructure to said monument sign, but that is a placeholder for a potential future monument sign on the fire station campus. And then moving in storage, that's a $5,000 allowance to assist the fire station with moving in all of this equipment. So whether it be transportation fees, additional labor to help move and set the equipment is captured in that moving and storage line item. Moving into technology. So our low voltage cabling, security, access control, SIS, so network, phones, computers, software, and as well as the overhead paging system kind of makes up your technology budget, about $84,000 there. And then the associated development and administrative costs we discussed earlier with permit fees, utility providers, Duke Energy, Piedmont Natural Gas, our development fees, some fees already being incurred due to sketch plan reviews, NCDOT roadway applications, and any other items that may come up with NCDEQ, Mecklenburg County, and our and then moving into our tap fees for our Charlotte water and sewer connections. We recently received information that we were projecting an 8-inch tie-in. We have confirmation that we need a 6, so that number actually dropped from 201,000 to 150,000. Yeah.
Okay, and I do just want, for the benefit of the board, to just know that we've been very, very pleased with the work that Story has been able to do in really short order, tracking down a lot of these owner costs and being able to get numbers on the page that we feel good about, and then also working with the various other companies and options and tracking down prices to be able to firm up these numbers. They've really been able to put a lot of meat on that bone in just a short amount of time, because that has been a big question mark in some previous conversations that we've had with the board, is not having firm numbers on that other side. So it was very hard to be able to say what we thought the total project cost was going to be. That includes, of course, ADW and Samet, but then also all of the costs that we need to carry on our side. So we want to talk to the board a little bit about where we are with dollars and cents. And so when we look at that $9.1 million as the project is currently designed, some of it has already been funded. And that's what we've got on the page right now. So a total of $802,000 of that total project cost has already been funded by board action. So that includes getting the design to a guaranteed maximum price, which is final design of the building as you're seeing it today. We also have the contract with Story Project Management that we used some FY23 funding to be able to get them on board to start to assist us. And then in looking through what we're contracted with Samet and ADW, and then how much the board actually funded for that work, there's about $20,000 that we've encumbered through ARPA dollars, but isn't actually allocated for any specific purpose. But bottom line, we've essentially spent $802,000 that we don't need to find new dollars to cover. So when we look at our cash on hand, we went ahead and updated how much available ARPA dollars we have left. And we are standing at $6.647 million in completely unallocated ARPA dollars. So that's taking out the 1.5 million for affordable housing, everything we've contracted with Samet and ADW for design work, the other projects that you all have funded with ARPA dollars, taking all of those out, we still have $6.6 million. And we, as part of the FY24 budget, allocated $1.5 million in funding to go towards this project. And then we have, again, those excess FY23 dollars that we encumbered to help fund our engagement with Story Project Management. So looking at those three buckets of dollars, we have $8.2 million that we could consider as cash on hand. That would be a maximum amount. So when we look at the current projected budget of 9.1 and we back out what we have already funded, and then we compare it to the cash that we have on hand as currently designed, we have a delta of $142,815 that we would need to find. So that is remaining dollars that we would need to find if we made no other changes to this project design and the projected numbers were to all hold firm. That is if you spent every remaining ARPA dollar on this project. So what we are looking for the board to make a decision on, it doesn't need to be tonight, but certainly to have a discussion on, would be the options to close that funding gap. And so it can be a combination of a number of things. So one is to make some additional cuts to this project. And we do have those value engineering options that we can go over in detail tonight if the board is ready to look at that. You would also have the opportunity, if you wanted to allocate some additional general fund balance to close that gap. Or we, of course, always have the option to take out a small construction loan or any variation of those three in order to close the gap of what we would need to have full funding for this project.
With a small construction loan, just assuming we're using all the ARPA dollars, which I'm not convinced is a great idea, you'd have to take out a loan for $143,000. So what would the term, was that, you were taking a 3-year loan, or we
Sure.
thinking, what's that gonna look like?
Sure. So, and again, that would be if you made no cuts to the project and you just said, we want to accept everything as is. So anything that is below $500,000 with a repayment term of less than 59 months, it doesn't require LGC approval. You can just go and get bids and take it out. That small of a loan, a 1-year repayment, maybe a 2-year repayment. It's very, very small. So you'd be looking at maybe a 4.5% interest rate. So, $70,000-ish dollars, maybe slightly higher a year in order to pay that off over 2 years. But my recommendation would be to certainly look at cuts first to see how close you can get.
I guess that maybe ties into my next question with the ARPA funds. I mean, we've already had the 1.5 for affordable housing. We did the pay stuff. We've paid Samet some already. I mean, is there anything else that the town is wanting to use that money for? Are there bigger projects? Is there something down the road that you see value to? What does that look like?
Sure. So, so the board heard about a number of projects a couple of months ago, and you decided to move forward with funding some of them. So the fire station number 2 upfit is already underway. The records management system at the police department is underway. That's already accounted for, So there were a number of other projects that we talked about, including the sound system in this room. There was, I think the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is about 18 years old at this point. And then I know some commissioners had some other ideas for some potential uses of the funds. And so there's certainly more options than there is dollars. So it would really be the will of the board regarding how you would want to save some ARPA dollars for other projects or not. From a loan standpoint, taking out a loan on real property is a very simple process. Whereas some of the, you can't take out a loan to do a study because there's no tangible product out of it.
Becky, how much money have we spent to date all in on fire station number 3? Or Teresa, maybe?
We have funded 802,000. Yes.
I'd be interested in other commissioners' opinions, but I want to echo what Mayor Pro Tem just said. I'm not comfortable spending 100% of our remaining ARPA dollars on this one project and just killing every other project that we've ever considered and spending every cent. So I would want to do something less than all if it was up to me. Commissioner Whitley?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. We taking in 1.5 million for affordable homes. That's safe. All right, that's not in the budget. That's not usually. Okay. All right, and I'll agree with the mayor. I don't think we should use all of it, but now if we're gonna take out let me just say this. I think all of us are shocked with the price, but you can't be shocked in the times that we're living in there when you're talking about building. And I'm preaching to the choir, John. I know you know that. Our prices is changing every day. Interest rate, as you well know, is going back up again. So, but so what I would like to see, if we are gonna have to use a small loan, just borrow a little bit more for the small loan to subsidize, rather than maybe like you said, what I think you said 140, then $350,000 loan, or even $500,000 loan. We're gonna pay it back. I mean, but at the same time, that would give us a little breathing room off of that $9 million. I'm not really shocked because I know it's a quality building. I mean, people that look at it, and I know we cut prices, and I'm glad to hear you saved us some money in cutting. But at this point, it is on a gateway, and it's going to be one of the prettiest buildings coming into Matthews on the Idlewild side on 51, and it's going to be a showcase. And I mean, I know we're not building for a showcase, but at the same time, it's going to be a representative of something in that side of town that we don't have any securities, fire department on the northern side. So that's going to be a great asset. And as I know all of you notice, building on that end is going crazy all over everywhere on that end. So it's a plus, it's a must that we have a fire station in that area. So that, Mayor, that would be mine. That let's increase the small business loan maybe to $500,000. We'll pay that back in a little while, but that would be mine. No, leave the ARCA fund because we don't want to deplete. Ain't that what we said? Yeah, let's leave the ARCA fund there and let's do a small business loan.
Can we go back to for those few people that may be watching this, can we go back to the slide that shows the trend line for increases, national average? So that's really small. How much are we going up year over year on average? If we'd use that national average line, can somebody actually see that? I know I can't. Okay, there you go. So these are per quarter. So, wow.
And I think the one important thing to note is the increase is slowing. You're seeing the curve sort of flatten, but very rarely you can see here does it go down. And so a project in the future will cost more. It just may cost more at a slower rate. If that makes sense.
That's the point I wanted to bring forward. Commissioner Tofano or Commissioner Hoover, you guys have any comments on what we should do here?
Okay, for me, it comes down to safety of the citizens. And we definitely need this. I think we have to kind of face reality and ask ourselves, what's more important? And I'm not saying it's not important, but we're having to look at what we're bringing here. Affordable housing, yes, we need it. But for me, priority is safety of the citizens that are currently here. I know the 1.5 million has been earmarked for that. I would like to see the 1.5 million applied to what we have. Let's pay cash, be done with it. That's just me. I trust Chief Kinnenberg on what he has requested and needed. And so whatever the man needs, I support. And yes, this is a lot of money, but for me, safety for the citizens we have is top priority. And what good is it to keep developing if we're not going to have the protection current citizens need? So again, I would rather just pay cash, be done with it. And it would hit some people, would be upset, I know, but maybe there's other ways we can figure out how to help to go towards affordable housing. Just it's something we really have to really ask ourselves, what's more important here at this moment in time? Because the citizens are what's most important, and getting their safety, their homes. And again, just I prefer to use every cent, pay cash for it.
Thank you. Mr. Tofano, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Hoover. No more debt. We don't need any more debt. I wanted to check one thing. I know it's not exactly relative to this meeting, but that was 9 point something million just in construction costs total, but that's not including bringing all the necessary personnel, right? Or the original cost of the land. So all that combined, what does that come to? Do you have just a ballpark figure?
I would have to go back and look and add to it. So the funding for personnel is already built into the FY25 budget with how we set up the FY24 budget. So we won't be looking for new dollars to fund personnel in 25.
Right, but I'm not talking about what monies are already available. I'm talking about total cost of the town, regardless of what the funds came from. And it's going to come out to about 11 million, the way I'm looking at it. And a year and a half ago, I predicted that this was going to cost $11 million, and I was openly mocked in this. So I'm not surprised at this price. And so I'm perfectly fine with it because I knew that it was going to end up being 11 million. So I thank you very much, but I am with Commissioner Hoover, and no more debt. Take it from the money we've got and pay for this thing, and let's get it over with.
Get my 2 cents? Oh, well, I think we're a little over our skis, because first of all, I don't know what are the remaining projects on the ARPA list. So I can't talk to that. And if you definitely want to do those projects, what difference does it make if you pay for them now or pay for them later? So I'm not, if you're paying for it one way or the other, I'm not sure what the discussion point is, right? If we're buying new apples, use ARPA funds, or take out a loan to buy new apples. So I'm not sure, but I need to know what those projects are. And then let's see what the additional, what the ad alternates are. Let's look at conversation I think we had briefly with Simon about fixing your fee. Although a little, number is still locked in. And I'd also, we've had this conversation about, when to go hard with the GMP and getting that nailed down as well. But I do know that we might find that 142,815 very readily, because there was a conversation about ordering equipment, switch gear, doing some things, getting ahead of the curve. And so it may be a moot point to have this conversation, like, because that 142 may be off the table and we got everything covered and we go on. So I got some leftover stuff.
And just to be clear, the 142, if we could go back to that slide, Greg. So again, I just want to be clear that the 142 would be if you then used all remaining ARPA dollars. So I do think that the next step for the board, if you're interested in continuing with this design, and it sounds like there's interest and support to do that, would be to go ahead and if you have the energy tonight, to let's start to look at the value engineering list and see if there are cuts or adjustments that can be made that can start to chip away at that delta and see just how low we're able to get, if the board wants to take that on now.
Becky, I just want to get a point of clarification. In our 2024 budget, there is no funds allocated for salaries for the fire station, correct? The 1.5 million would be used for construction.
That's exactly right. We carved out the $1.5 million and put it in our capital improvements program specifically to go towards this project, whether that was Samet or whoever constructs the project, their bill, or our side of the ledger. It was to go towards this total project, and we would not be looking to hire staff and fund staffing positions until the FY25 budget.
Before we move on, I'd also like to get some clarification from the elected officials in the room. I think we all saw Commissioner Garner was pretty upset. I think we did expect that there would be the possibility of looking at some alternate designs, or at least looking if those could be significantly less. Town manager made a comment that we're all ready to move on with this design. Is that a true statement with folks that are in the room? Ken?
Part of me agrees with Commissioner Hoover. It'd be nice to see an alternate, and what that cost would be. I think it's tough when you're just like, this is the design, let's go with it. And what if there's a design that's $2 million cheaper and that solves the affordable housing money, or it could solve a problem. I just don't know what the cost related to getting that designed is.
Well, that's one of the reasons I asked to look up at the escalator with inflation. If we punt and start over, are we really going to save money? I don't know. Chief?
And I was not part of the small group meeting. So I don't know exactly what the direction was or the intended direction. But Gina didn't point this out strong enough. We've pushed and pulled and redesigned this building probably 5 or 6 times. And every time, and John said every corner costs money and every hip and gable costs money. And we pushed and pulled on this building to the point where we were losing functionality by trying to simplify the demand. To make it square, we wound up with a galley workout room. We have designed a very efficient fire station. We've lessened the cost everywhere we can and explored all the different cost options. Travis is getting very tired of me with, hey, look at this. So, I'm sorry Commissioner Gardner feels like she was not heard. But I think we did what Commissioner Gardner wanted us to do, is explore other options. ADW has fulfilled their obligation to design this fire station. So to start over, this board would incur several $100,000 more of additional work. You just can't pick up a fire station and plop it down on another piece of land and say that'll work.
This is a minor consideration, but the tanked water heaters versus instantaneous. If you looked at the cost savings in electricity, because I went at the time had 2 teenagers in my house and went from a tank to instantaneous, and my gas bill was cut like in 70% because that was mostly what, the long showers my kids were taking.
Return on investment is something we looked at, and it's what, $36,000 difference.
It's a significant cost savings in utilities, I can tell you from personal experience, and I just have one. So, I mean, I don't know if you looked at that. Water heater, the tankless water heater knocked like 70% off of my gas bill monthly. That's with my kids taking an hour shower, the time.
And I just want to clarify, I certainly didn't mean to be presumptive that this board is ready to move forward. If there is, I don't know enough about the design world as far as I understand whether or not something might fit on the site or work on the site would need to be assessed. But if there is board interest in moving forward with pricing a simpler design, I think we keep hearing simpler. I think the biggest takeaway that I've heard with that is less corners, more and less architectural features. I don't know if you have that sitting in a file somewhere and that can then be priced. So I guess we would be looking for direction, feedback from you all as far as if there is interest from the board and at least entertaining that exercise, what would be involved in that or what would go into that?
I think I was in the meeting, and I think the expectation from Commissioner Garner was that not we would have an exhaustive, plan, but just a generalization that if you made this simpler style, we might be able to knock off $1 million or whatever. Not anything to this level of detail.
May I say one thing? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, let me piggyback on that because I was in that meeting, and I think that's what she was driving at. But I also feel that had we gotten through this presentation, she may have gotten a little bit of an aha moment. And I think that's the timing was unfortunate because when you look at 6 projects less than you and 4 projects more expensive than you could begin to have that conversation about, well, those that are less expensive, could you get down to those numbers? You could respond to, here's where you would have to go to get to those numbers, and you can make that decision. Now, it would have probably been better to be pre-prepared for that and had these numbers earlier and said, okay, Renee, we're at 558. And if you wanted to get to 484, we'd lop off the community room or something like that. Then it would have given her something. So I that's where I think she was leaving the meeting is what could happen. And she was looking for the bullet points or something from that aspect. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I know in having sort of my interim meeting with Story, just trying to work out the technical issues and trying to understand where they're coming from and their philosophy, talking shop, so to speak. I figured that we would have the opportunity to look at the delta of other projects. We'd have the opportunity of looking at other budget and alternates and value engineering. So I feel bad that Renee left early because I think this would have helped a little bit in the conversation and you could have spoken to what the big impacts are. We're here.
So first of all, I'd like to go on record and make sure that, we apologize to Commissioner Garner if we did not carry out her wishes and what she was looking for. I think that maybe she caught me flat-footed there for a second. And honestly, our intentions, and this has been an iterative process, right? This is something that we've worked through. And I think that what Commissioner Garner would have seen would have been the comparative projects. And if there is a comparative project that we want to go back and look at the massing or maybe a potential difference there, I think there's a possibility of that. But I would just want to say is that, around this project, I know we want to get it right. And I know that there's an intention there to get this project to be functional and to meet the needs of the fire department. But we also see diminishing returns that occur across a project as you begin to push and pull and massage it. There are fixed costs that are associated with this project that will not go away regardless of how you redesign it or how you push corners and how you do those things. So what I believe, and we see a lot of these fire departments, what I believe is that you have an optimized design. You have a chief that knows what needs to be in this fire department. There's a lot of fire departments that we work with that do not have that foresight and that vision. And I feel like that down the road, I think we would be remiss not to give this its full due. Number one, because we want this fire station to be of enduring value and to be functional and to be of use and to be of service to the community for a long-term period of time. And we feel like that this design that we are looking at right now is optimized. That is the opinion of Salmon and ADW, and we'll stand by that opinion.
Sure.
I'll just add that like going from schematic design into design development, we were presented with a sketch. Pretty sure John Urban did the sketch, and it was looking at the roofs. It was looking at the roofs and trying to simplify the roofs. So we did go back and we looked as we were moving into DD, and Samet priced different scenarios that we could do with the roofs. So the project, the space adjacencies that we worked out with Chief and his team kind of led to the floor plan per se, what spaces he needed next to each other. And the roofs kind of became related to the massing of those spaces and how that plan laid out. So as we were moving into DD, we did look at trying to simplify the roof and determined that the hip roofs that we had shown on the back of the building were the most economical way to go. We did look at trying to pull some spaces in to kind of square off more corners. And Chief was alluding to this also, and it made the exercise room kind of like a longer, skinny room in order to save two corners. So we looked at the cost of what those two corners were costing and looked at how the function wasn't really working. And we were creating kind of dead end conditions with egress and so forth. So it kind of resulted in, we were like, well, we looked at it. The cost savings wasn't really there to support it, to still work with the program and the spaces that he was looking for. And it just kind of evolved on from there.
Yeah, I think that's some of the feedback Commissioner Garner was probably looking for. And again, going back, Commissioner Hoover, to your comment, when we had this meeting, the whole point was, what can we do to drive the cost of this down and then bring everybody together to discuss as a group? There was no, we just couldn't have a meeting with everybody because it's open meeting laws and all that. So we just said that was the purpose as far as I was concerned of the meeting was, what can you do to reduce the cost of this? And when you do that, then we'll come back and have a meeting with everybody. That being said, I'm not hearing anybody say that you don't want to go forward with this project. Am I putting words in anybody's mouth? Does everybody want to go forward with this design as is, or with not as is, but not starting over? Yeah, fine tuning and not starting over. I'm seeing heads nod. So I would. These meetings are few and far between and hard to organize and get everybody free on the same night. So it would be my hope that we could go on and tonight and look at some value engineering possibilities. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Mayor. I mean, we're here, and I value Chief knowledge and what he needs in this. You know, sometimes you cut corners, but you get what you pay for. I mean, we're here. I think we need to move forward because every day is money, time is money, and it's costing us more. We've already got here. Let's move on and finish this project.
Let's take about a 5-minute break. Is that all right? We'll come back. Everybody have a bathroom break or get a drink. Who are we missing? Commissioner Tefano as well? Let's go ahead and get started. I think we want to have a discussion around what some of the value engineering options are, how we could maybe further cut costs. Who's gonna lead the discussion?
Travis with Sam.
All right, Travis.
If we can go to the, oh, perfect. That is not very clear, so I'm going to do my best to read this out loud. The first thing I want to preface is what we're looking at is the pending items that are still remaining open. We have gone through additional items and accepted and rejected, and that's the savings you see at the top. And so currently what's on the list is a total of $123,000 in savings opportunity. But I will caveat that one of those items will affect another value engineer item that has been accepted for savings. But do want to point out that the reason the list may not appear as exhaustive is to the point prior to our break, and that I think that alludes to the efficiency of the design. And so I'll jump right into it. Our first item on the list is to change the locker room and laundry room to a sealed stained concrete in lieu of a tile flooring. And that savings amounts to $8,173.
So we've already eliminated we've decided to go with an acid etched concrete in the kitchen, dining, day room, and back hallway area. The apparatus bay is sealed concrete. The storage areas and the turnout gear storage and decon area are all sealed concrete. So we've eliminated all floor coverings from a majority of the building. The kitchen, the bedrooms have carpet, the offices have carpet. The four unisex bathrooms are tiled, and we'll talk about a savings there. So this would be the only tiled area of the living quarters of the station. On the community room side, we've gone with carpet in the community room and the conference room, and LVP down the hallway and tile on the floor, I believe.
Thank you, Chief. And one item to note there is we did reduce the tile in the shower rooms already to find savings. So.
Rob, can I ask you a question? How nasty does carpet get in a fire station?
Well, we don't allow turnout gear in the living quarters of the fire station. It will have to be replaced in several years, but when you get 8 people sleeping in one room, you need things to absorb sound. And so carpeting on the floor absorbs sound.
Okay.
To kind of piggyback on that, the carpet squares that can be pulled up and replaced.
That's what we're using.
Becky, do you recommend I make a motion to accept the item, or? Okay. Gotcha.
All right. Does anybody have any, why don't we just leave it at this? We're going to go over these, and if you don't like the idea, speak up. Is that fair? If we don't hear from you, we're going to assume that, that we're good with the suggested change.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
And sure. And I just wanted to add that, Rob, if there's any drawback to accepting or any concern that you have for that item or any impact, if you can just make sure to add that flavor to the conversation, please.
At this point, this is tile in the locker room itself on the floor. We still have tile in the bathrooms. So either way, it's no more, no less for us to keep it clean with acid etched concrete than it is tile. So we could easily do without it.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next item. And this is the toughest one we have to go through because it's not representative of the full value we can accept, and I'll explain why. This item is to remove the full height brick veneer that we added to the front facade of the building from SD to DD. And the reason that we can't accept the full 45,000 in this meeting is because we've accepted a VE already to change the brick size to utility in lieu of modular. Ultimately, utility gives it a bit more of a commercial look, and it also reduces the amount of brick need to cover the same square footage. There's labor efficiencies in that. But if we accept taking the brick back off and replacing the front veneer with just fiber cement lap, and then we would have about a 3-foot water table of brick with a precast sill. We would have to reconcile that because it influences the other item that's already been accepted for $35,000 in savings.
I am not, I'm one of 7, but I am not for doing what you suggest. I think I made the comment, I think the building starts to look like a Wendy's or something when it's all lap. I mean, you got to, let's put brick on the front. Come on. I mean, this is a building that's going to be around for 50 or 75 years. I mean, does anybody else think likewise or disagree? I mean, you like brick? I mean, it's just, this is just the front too, right? We're only talking the front of what you see from the street. So it's not like we're, building a Taj Mahal, but I just think. Right.
It wraps to an inside corner. Yes.
And it's not in the vast scheme of things, it's not a huge lever. So I would suggest we just leave the brick as is.
The next item on the list is a cost add, and Chief can elaborate a little bit on this. We noticed during our design development pricing that we had interior bollards to protect the apparatus bay overhead doors and the need to potentially have those. So we wanted to point that out to Chief and have the conversation around it. We, of course, have bollards to protect the exterior of the building. We are currently using glass sectional overhead doors in lieu of bifold doors in the front. Bifold doors are extremely expensive. So I believe Chief's recommendation on this item was if we're staying with the overhead doors, the need for the interior apparatus bay bollards at those openings wasn't needed. Was not needed? Correct.
So I'm not following. Are we requesting to add them or take them off or what?
So drop down 2 lines and you'll see 96,535. So this one would be to change the front bay doors from overhead to bifold doors. The industry touts a significant annual maintenance savings by using bifold doors. I can't quote what the number is, but it's significant.
Can you give more of a bifold, I understand, but I'm talking about the front of a fire station. These like
they're
humongous,
inward
or
folding
like-
4-section doors. So
Okay,
they're like
just
an
like the-
accordion. So you have to drop back the width of the door folded plus a foot and put a bollard in to prevent anything from being parked within the opening movement area of the door. So $96,500 is, we won't even get into that, but that's way more. But this is a popularity driven cost. Lead time on these doors is running way out and there's not many people who build them. So to save almost over $100,000 from the project, we recommend we just stay with the anodized red overhead doors and eliminate both the 96,000 and the $9,000 for the bollards.
So I'm still following. Why are these in the add column?
Because right now we've just got the regular doors.
So you're saying
So-
the recommendation was made to use those and you're saying you don't need them.
Not at $102,000.
And that would be additional cost to the project on top of whatever we have now.
Correct.
The,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
items in black are like the brick. It would be adding to the cost of the project.
I'll just clarify, the response time with using the bifolding doors is a lot greater. So the chief asked for a price, what would be the added cost to go to that kind of door?
Okay.
So with that kind of door, his preference would be to have bollards inside the bay to protect those expensive doors. So if you add one, he's saying he would want to add them both. But since that was just looking at the cost to go to that way, there is a life cycle savings if you do the bifolding doors versus the overhead kind of garage doors. But
Yeah,
it's really an operational preference.
There's significant strain on overhead doors. The front doors are 12 by 16. Full glass. So when they are in the upright horizontal position, extreme wear on rollers and hinges because of just the weight of the door. Plus you have to move the sprinkler system to protect the bay when the door is in the upright position. You have to have 2 layers of sprinklers because of that. So there's a lot of pieces and parts with it. We are talking to Cox Door locally, and we're looking at another door option, surprise, that if you've been to an automotive dealership, they're called Orman doors. And we saw them in Greensboro. They're like 5 seconds from closed to open. So, but we're just running down the cost of those right now.
Okay. So I think we agree with your assessment that that's too expensive. So.
All right. The next item on the list, it is a $0 deduct right now. And that is to remove the front 2 porch features of the building and the roof structure. The reason I want to point out it's a $0 change is we can identify the savings and determine that, but we will have to weigh that against the design schedule and the associated redesign cost of making a drastic change at this stage in the drawings.
I do have to ask the question, what is that? What is that dollar amount?
That's
No, I know what the image is. I'm saying what is that? I mean, okay, we could save, we could save 10,000, but it costs 10,000, or we would save 50,000 and it costs 50,000. What is that number?
I think you would be disappointed in the negligible effects of removing that. And Gina, I know you could speak to how it could impact.
Design costs are really just depend on what we were replacing it with. You know.
All right.
The next 2 items on the list, I want to point out that this would effectively just be a shell game of where the money goes to the town of Matthews side of the ledger. The first item is to eliminate the full height lockers in the officer bedrooms. That's a total of 6 lockers. So they are currently carried as a contractor furnished and installed item. The next item, and excuse me, the value for that savings is $6,860. The next item would be to remove from Samet's scope of work the locker room, metal lockers and benches, and that's $31,420.
Either way, we're paying for them. What's the point of it being on the sheet?
That's my question exactly. That's
It-
pretty much.
It has to do with procurement. The chief is buying other lockers already that are owner furnished. And so that it was just a transparency feature of Samet to say if you have a means of procuring it in a more fashionable way.
And I was just gonna say, if there would still be some cost because the lockers are needed, I think the question is, do we think that we could save money if we got them ourselves?
Especially since you're buying other lockers. He's already gonna be buying the.
Well,
gear, grid
Rob,
locker.
you went to South Mex, so you would have a really good math understanding. If you could,
So,
we
so,
went to the same high school.
so we reduced square footage in the protective clothing room. We were able to reduce the square footage of the room itself by not having Samet purchase and install the lockers. By leaving it out, it's just a room. If we were to put the lockers in, we have to comply with all the ADA requirements and have a 4-foot passageway around all the lockers. So we can go back. We don't need 4 feet to hang up your turnout gear. We don't have people in wheelchairs putting turnout gear away. So we were able to get more lockers in the space, more lockers in a smaller space if we buy and install the lockers ourselves. Those are from Ready Rack. The lockers that are proposed or shown are built-in lockers. And I'll just be honest, I don't want to run the risk of the locker I buy not fitting the hole Gina designed, which is a real risk. And we'd have to put them together and install them ourselves.
So you're saying your recommendation is keep them in the budget with Samet?
Yes.
I think I'm fine with that.
Okay.
The next item on the list is to add an increased capacity generator fuel cell to be a dual purpose vehicular fuel pumping station. The pump is currently with the town of Matthews, as well as the prospect of a future fuel cell. But what this savings generates here is that we'll eliminate the current housekeeping pad and conduit that Samet has in their number for the future fueling station that would be separate from the diesel generator that's already in the project.
So what we've decided to go with is a backup generator with a larger tank. The larger tank will also serve to fuel the apparatus. So we're eliminating a separate fuel utility, pump, conduit, power, and pad.
I mean, in looking at this sheet, I don't understand where we're just shuffling stuff from one side of the ledger to the other. I don't understand how that adds any.
Not in this case, Mayor.
I can't see the numbers.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I didn't say the value. So this is to save $12,905, and it's not a shell back and forth between us and the town of Matthews.
See, it's got parentheses.
It would be a reduction in scope of work, and then to offset the associated cost of changing the generator fuel tank, we would work together with the chief on the cost that he's carrying for the future fuel pump, since it would be integrated into one.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
The next item on the list is to add to Samet's budget a lightning protection system. Oftentimes you see this in a much taller building, but with the level of detail that we had in the drawings, this was an item that we wanted to be transparent about if we had it carried in our budget. And the cost add we received from our trade partners for a lightning protection system was $24,255, and that is a cost add.
I just don't see the necessity. It's not a 8-story building, to be frank.
Rob, you want to weigh in on that?
We have had facilities hit by lightning, town facilities, and have taken out the electrical systems. So that would be the risk.
What happened to the old lightning rod? We put a
Put a metal rod up on the roof and call it good.
Yeah, I mean, this is insurance. It is considered a public safety facility best practice. We don't have it at Cruise Road. We don't have it at Fire Station 1. But if this is intended to be a 24-hour backup facility to support continuity of operations, it would be wise to build it in. I don't know what the system is or what it does other than capture lightning and send it to the ground, but I'm sure there's more to it.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be facetious.
I didn't
but
go
mean-
to state for an electrical engineering degree.
Right, okay. Yeah, I wasn't being facetious, but it just seems kind of expensive for what undoubtedly is a fancy lightning rod. I imagine it's a conduit from the roof to the ground via some electrical conductor, so.
Instead of cutting it, are there cheaper options? I mean, is that
And I think that's what we do, right? If we move forward to try to integrate a system, we work as a team to identify the most cost-effective approach. And it was given as an ad without a design.
So can we just bypass that one and then you guys do some more work on it? Because in the building is grounded. Right? And maybe there's some other things that Optima, Keith and Ron can come up with some answers. Go from there. So let's bypass that one, but keep it on the table for now.
All right. The next item on the list is to remove the Samet fuel allowance for startup and commissioning of the generator. That's kind of low hanging fruit, and it's something that we would normally perform. We were just trying to offer opportunities for savings. The value of that credit is $5,000.
I believe the 5,000 could be found in the operating budget for Fire Station 3. So I think that's a cost that yes, it would fall on our side, but I think it would fit within planned existing budgets.
Rob, how much fuel are we talking about in your generator tank? Just ballpark, I'm just curious. It's
The maximum we can carry with a self-contained double wall tank is 880 gallons.
Wow.
So, and
Still
and the-
pretty substantial. I mean,
well, and this would be a startup and testing amount of fuel we would use. As Becky said, we would use our standard fuel budget to fill the generator up. And this will help. Our plan is to keep the generator fuel fresh by rotating it more often. And used to be Exxon would keep fuel on hand for police and fire. They're not there anymore, and nobody else does it for us. So we want to make sure we provide fuel on site.
Do we have a containment pad that it's sitting in?
It's a double wall tank, so it's internally diked.
So, okay. Oh, internally diked.
It
Okay.
doesn't require a
Take it off
secondary
that.
dike.
All right, thanks.
All right.
So we'll accept that.
The next item on the list is also going to have a bit of ambiguity to it. We received the comment from our trade partners during pricing that the electrical testing and commissioning requirements that Optima laid forth in note E002 seemed extensive from their past experience. And they suggested that if it was reduced in scope, they could save $10,000. And we are actively working with Optima and our trade partners to identify that cost to try to save.
Can you give me some idea what that involves? Rob or Travis? I mean, what's the total cost if there's a $10,000 savings? What's the total cost for that item?
I would have to get that information for you. This is like arc flash testing of the switchgear. It gets into all these, component
stuff.
pieces of the equipment.
Because I'm just thinking, totally not knowing a whole lot about fire station construction, that, hey, this light works, so you're actually looking for arcing and potential safety issues like that.
That's correct.
Thank you.
We're going to keep working on that one, John, and try to identify what's driving what they would normally versus what was in the DD drawings. The next item is empty, but we just wanted to lay it forth as it is a risk that we have mostly negated. And that was any offsite improvements for NCDOT or roadway Highway 54 improvements that NCDOT would require. And so that one, as a team, we're going to continue to negate that risk.
Good luck.
So just for council, so we talked to Felix. Felix is the area engineer. Initially, we were going to have to build a left turn lane that morphed down into an island down 51 to prevent left turns into the parking lot of the fire station. And then Susan worked her magic with Felix and got that down to no improvements at this point. But that's an email, not an official letter from NCDOT, so there still may be more.
I don't want to get too far off topic, but while we're talking about that, what sort of lights and things like that are you going to have to inform the public that, hey, we've got a call, we've got to come out, so stop or whatever?
So initially none, but we have put in future provisions for conduit for light controls down to the street. The plan is for 2 loons in front of the fire station. So the fire station's actually flipped and moved over to accommodate the NCDOT right-of-way acquisition. So we will come out between 2 loons at a traffic light controlled turnaround. So our goal is to have an activation switch in the bay that will capture the lights, turn them red, and we will come out when that is completely built out. Traffic into the facility and out of the driveway will have to go down to Lebanon Road and turn around to get in. So you'll have to travel through the Idlewild Road intersection, turn around at Lebanon and come back to the fire station. And then to go the other way, you have to come out of the fire station, go down to Phillips and turn around to go back toward Mint Hill.
Okay, thank you.
And then our last pending item is to remove the stone base. Currently, Samet is carrying a 6-inch compacted ABC stone base at the future metal building pad. And the savings there is $3,768.
And we would recommend rejecting that savings. We hope for a storage building behind the fire station at some point. Not in this price is the curb and gutter that's already planned that takes you from the parking lot up to the pad. And if we have to come back and pour a base for the pad, we'll also incur the cost of curb and gutter and asphalt or concrete repair in the back of the building.
One thing to add to that too, Chief, is we are using a roll curb in that location. So we're building in provisions for, no demolition of what we're putting in to facilitate the future use of that metal building when it comes online. I think our intention with the stone pad is if and when the metal building does take place with the roll curb and stone, it immediately becomes usable, whether it's overflow parking or lay down of any form of equipment for the chief and his staff.
Chief, when do you anticipate putting a metal building on the pad?
Depends where we come in with price. We've gone from $1 million down to about 100,000 as far as the building actual cost is concerned, in terms of options. So we would like to erect it as soon as possible as part of the original project, by a third-party vendor.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I would not be in favor of putting on a stone pad if you're not going to put a building on it for 5 or 10 years or something, do it when you build the building.
This is to compact the soil lay in a stone base so that we could do something in the future.
Well, I mean, it's $3,700. So if the chief, if you think it's important, it's negligible amount on the entire project. So who's been adding up all these costs that we've what's the total? How much did we just shave off of our project? Ooh, all right. Lori? Let me ask who always knows, Lori.
Well, I mean, I'm more than happy to take it. For the cost of the tax. Take it now. Okay, we'll take that, eliminate electrical testing and commissioning for now. For everybody's in agreement, so it'd be $36,078. And then we'll take the eliminate electrical testing and commissioning at 10K, and then you'll further that out. It'll be an ad later, well, no, there'll be no ad later, but anyway, the number is $36,078.
With the caveat that the lightning protection system is under investigation as far as if there's a cheaper option that might potentially be added back.
Commissioner or Mayor Pro Tem McCool, do you know what the lightning warning system cost at Morrow? Do you have any idea?
It's been a long time ago.
I don't think it was $10,000.
No, I think if I remember, it was like less than 5.
That's a warning system, though. It doesn't necessarily
Yeah,
divert.
but if it's like
It
within-
lets you know if lightning's in the area.
Yeah, if it's
So
within 3
basically-
miles or something, it sets off the alarm and stops the baseball game, which is infuriating.
Pretty often. Commissioner Hoover.
Back to the building, I don't know how big the pad is, but I can say we had an 18 by 29-foot storage building installed with the garage top door. That cost around $7,000. And I don't know how big you're looking at, to just give you a rough estimate of.
You're correct. We just installed one similar to yours. The building itself was 8,000. The concrete was poured by Public Works for about 4. So, as I said, we've gone from almost $1 million for an engineered Butler building down to something a lot more reasonable.
Yeah, because ours is concrete. We paid $3,000 for the concrete and the building was around $7,000.
Rob, what do you want to put in this building?
You know,
Stuff?
we have a lot of
Fire
equipment.
stuff?
We have a lot of equipment that sits outside, and we've got a trailer with about $1 million worth of radiological equipment sitting outside, spare vehicles. This just gives us a nice, clean place to put this stuff. We'll have 2 pieces of apparatus in this building, probably a primary and a reserve. But we still have the old rescue because we're not quite ready to let go of it yet. So, it's sitting outside at Public Works. So we always have more stuff than we have place to put, but this keeps it clean, out of the weather.
Okay, thank you. Question for Becky and or Teresa. How does the closing of Idlewild affect this budget, or has it already been wrapped into it? Whereas we're not contributing to Idlewild after some point, or chief, whoever wants to answer.
Oh, so you're talking about Idlewild Volunteer Fire Department. So we will be transitioning away from them over time. But it would be as we bring our staff on and get up to full speed, which would be in FY25. So we have accounted for the eventual cost savings that will come when we're no longer funding Idlewild in terms of budgeting for staff and operating the station, but it doesn't impact the construction budget or finding available dollars to help us with the construction budget.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Tefano?
Yes, for the chief, of these deductions that we are debating, did you want them? Did you want the items that they're debating to deduct? In other words, is there anything in here that you do not want that is in the deduct column? Okay, give the man what he wants. And just let's go ahead and take it out of affordable housing and pay for the extra 70, 80,000 and give the chief what he wants. It's I think we've taken this long enough.
Chief, you said you want all this stuff. Did I understand you correctly? I thought you
There's
said.
nothing in here that I'm gonna go home and badmouth you all for taking out of my
Yeah,
fire
well, let's take the
station.
cuts then.
You know,
Badmouth us more than usual. Let's
no,
get
I don't do
clarification.
that at all. I mean, none of the items we've talked about have taken away from the functionality of the apartment, the station, the livability of the station. You know, tile in the locker room would be nice, but you know, if we're counting our pennies, we can let that go. We've built what we think is and Chris said this, it is a very efficient, economically designed station. I think you said that.
So could I add one thing then, in talking to Chief about the ad alternate for the metal building? Would it be safe that if we said instead of 250, we would say 150? And that would be our budget for that at this stage of the game. And if you get down to the Gina Hoover special of $9,999, that would be great. But I'm thinking 100K there, the 36 deduct we have, let's say it's 140 in round numbers. We just watched the 140 we're talking about tonight. And we're no instruction loan, no nothing. We see.
That would then be using all of your ARPA funds for this project. So I just want to, but without touching affordable housing, and without taking out a loan.
So I want
Well-
to be clear again. I saw, I think Commissioner Hoover and I probably have the same thought. I'm not remembering all those numbers adding up. So can we take a look at those? What was,
Greg,
If
can
we-
you
if-
go back to the owner cost review?
if we used all of the ARPA funds, which is 6, 7 or something like that?
So what Commissioner Urban is talking about is the ad alternate metal building that is up there.
Right,
That 250,000 is included in the project budget right now.
right.
And so he's suggesting that we reduce that by $100,000 and charge Rob and Story with finding us a reasonable metal building that costs no more than 150. And if it can be closer to Gina's budget, that's great.
No, but can you go to the slide? And I don't know where it is. Again, it's been kind of a long night and I'm brains getting a little fuzzy here, but the budget overview.
So then if you go to the budget overview,
No, the slide where you said the cash we had on hand, that's the slide I
Sure.
want to see. Cash on hand. 8.2.
so we need, if we took all of that 8.2 before any of the cuts
Okay,
that you just
that's-
made, we would still need 142. But if you cut 100,000 out of the
That I get that.
the building and then the 37,000 that you just found, we're $5-6 grand away. You're basically flat.
Yeah, the delta is $106,737.
So if you took 100,000 out for that extra building, $6 grand.
Yeah, okay. I think what the confusion I had was I was going back to Commissioner Tofano's 11 million or whatever, that we're at 9 million without the land and the staffing. Okay. I'm again, I'm one of 7. I would like to review again. You know, we could do it tonight if you can produce this quickly. What were some of the other projects we were talking about using ARPA funds for? Because we are really limiting what we're using ARPA funds for. I mean, certainly a fire station's a good thing to use it for, but we're spending our entire ARPA allocation on only a couple items. And that may be the desire of the board. I don't know. I'm not saying that's bad, but I would like to go back and review what some of those other things we considered were. All right, let's review that tonight again. We don't want to, it's like, again, like herding cats, trying to get everybody to be able to come to these unscheduled meetings. So
Have we talked about the long lead items? Did I zone out? So well, I'll say it, there is some potential cost savings.
Well, Chief,
Go ahead.
yeah, it's not cost savings. It's us keeping our construction schedule by releasing long lead items in time, which in turn, if there was a delay of the project, that could incur associated cost to the release of items. I can pull that up real quick and just highlight some of those items, but the generator has a long lead to it, which would require releasing it early ahead of the final GMP to stay on schedule, as well as the switchgear and electrical, and then our larger exhaust fans in the apparatus bay.
Is there any payment ahead of schedule, like 3%, 5% discounts or anything like that? That the town would front, and so you get a 3% on, 100 grand of switchgear or something like that? Are there any discounts for pay up front?
Well, what I think would be most important to acknowledge is that you would mitigate the risk of escalation in material prices the longer it sits on the market without procuring it.
So what you have on the screen are the items that were discussed at a previous meeting of the board related to use of ARPA funds. I can pull up the individual costs if you need any refreshers on that. But I just separated that. Of course, we're talking about Fire Station 3. You funded the Fire Station 2 upfits, and you funded the records management system. Items 4 through 9 have not been funded. We did just release an RFP for the audio upgrades. So we would have some firmer costs back on that in a couple of weeks. But these were the other items that were specifically discussed. And then, of course, any other items that the board might be interested in considering.
what was the cost of the townwide stormwater assessment?
I believe it was 600. I believe the total cost was 600,000, but let me look that
I
up
think
for
that's
you.
something that's really important. I mean, we've had a lot of flooding here lately.
Can stormwater fees not pay for that we get?
We are maxed out on the use of stormwater fees with annual operational costs. So between paying for the personnel and then the other projects that they have, we break even right now. So we bring in about $900,000 a year in stormwater fees, and the budget is balanced.
Yeah, I was just asking if we had the results from the initial stormwater study we did along Main Street in that area that they had so much flooding. But I don't know, we've had some 100 and 250-year storms here lately, but there's been some flooding issues. I've been hearing a lot of calls for that. I think, and a lot of our stormwater and sewer was built many, many, many years ago. Some of it predates World War II. So
This, sorry, Mayor, the stormwater system assessment was $650,000.
which we would have no money to fund. I mean, these are the kind of things I think we need to look at.
Correct.
And maybe maybe we can look at this at a 5:30 or something. I think everybody's kind of tired tonight, but and we certainly don't want to keep all these other people that are just interested in our fire stuff here to discuss that. But I think we do have some other things that we might want to prioritize. Not saying that the fire station isn't eminently important, but there's some other things that are important as well.
So we do have an available 5:30 at your August 14th meeting that we can schedule to look at these ARPA projects and
I think that would be good.
look at this updated budget for the project and make some decisions about how to fund it, kind of using the moving pieces and parts.
So now that we have all of these folks here in one room that we've hired to help us with our fire station, are there any other questions for anybody from any of the groups here?
You want to go ahead with your scheduling on the ordering aspect?
If we can, Greg, if you don't mind sharing again, we did just have a next steps slide that we can talk about for a minute.
And while you're pulling that up, my question about what John was mentioning is it's $650,000. You don't spend an ARPA, you're going to get a loan, one or the other. Is there a difference in the fact that if you say, well, we're just going to go ahead and get a loan for $650 for a stormwater assessment, and that's one category and one interest rate, or is it better to do it on the back of the fire station?
So you wouldn't be able to get a loan for a study. You would have to go out. You could take out a loan, but you would have to put up a tangible asset as collateral. So that's why getting a construction loan is easier, because it's land and it's a building that has tangible value as opposed to a document.
If we're on agreement that you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul, it's just a matter of which pot you want to pull out.
Yes.
So it sounds like possibly that if you maneuver using ARPA funds, there's a little bit more leeway for the stormwater management thing, for example, and then tacking on $600,000 and construction loan. It's procedurally easier.
It's procedurally easier if you desire to do both. It is procedurally easier to take out a loan for a portion of the fire station costs, because we can then pay cash for the stormwater assessment.
So the question to you, Gina, would be is what projects on our list would the board want to do? And it sounds like by maneuvering them from ARPA funds procedurally is easier than you would just turn around. I mean, it's all money, it's all washing, but then you would take a loan out on the fire station aspect of it so you could fund that part. So we would just need to decide, and that's why you're talking about like 5:30 is sort of like, do we want to do these things? Because we talked about this room and we talked about other things, et cetera, et cetera. And so the ARPA funding makes it easier using simple terms.
Correct.
And that amount is not, it's a lot, but it's not a lot compared to what we would get for a construction loan. But then I also ask, there's nowhere in the general fund balance, which we have that contingency. Can we not pull from to pay for this?
So there are some dollars in the general fund balance that could also pay for whether it's a portion of this project or some of those other smaller projects if you wanted to move forward with them. So we can have all that information prepared as far as for each individual item, what your funding options would be for each of them, so that you can take a look at that at the 5:30.
Right. Okay.
There is something, and maybe it's psychological, but there is something that feels good about saying, hey, we're paying for the entire fire station. Let's write a check and we're done and we have no debt on that. And there's something that feels good about doing it.
And you could, and Teresa, I'm looking at you if I misstate here. We could at any point in time go out and get a loan for a study. We would just have to put up something else as collateral. So we're good on paying our debts. You do read the horror stories in the paper every now and again of, a town losing their town hall because they put it up as collateral and then didn't make the payments. So choose wisely. But there are funding mechanisms in place to do those other projects. It's just moving things around. It's just a little bit more complicated. But we'll bring that all to you on 8/14. So I'm looking at the next steps. We got through the majority of the VE decisions tonight. There's a little bit of additional work and research to do on a few of them. At your 8/14 regular meeting, there will be on the agenda the long lead items that if the board is desiring to move forward with this project, we do need to go ahead and get authorization for those items to be ordered. They are electrical panels. Travis, can you rattle off a few of those items?
Yeah, thank you. It's the generator, the automatic transfer switch for the generator, the switch gear, and then our propeller exhaust fans within the apparatus bay. And the total of that release is $133,800.
And there will also be on the 8/14 agenda a separate request for the station alerting system for Station 3, which is a cost savings opportunity. We have already budgeted in that lower price, but if that is not ordered fairly soon, it will go up, I believe, 30% in cost. And so these items, if the board does move on them, we will own these items. It is the town purchasing these items, but it is in fact saying that we intend to move forward with a fire station of some type. And these are the items that would fit into it. Looking then forward, Samet is going to continue their work and is planning to be prepared to bring us the guaranteed maximum price for construction to your November 13th meeting for action by the board. Then looking forward to be able to move forward with construction. All permits would be received by early December, and the earliest that construction would be able to start based on this timeline would be December 20th of this year.
All right. Any further questions, comments from anyone in the room? I just make a comment for those of us that work for the town of Matthews. It has nothing to do with you guys, but you may have heard that the town of Cornelius recently had a ransomware situation. So I want to remind everybody to be extra careful on what you click on emails, etc. I think Wayne Codgill's been really good in tricking us, and he's tricked me a few times, but I've said, by gosh, he's not going to trick me anymore. So our IT guy sends us, fake emails to see if we're stupid enough to click on them. And I used to be, but I'm getting much better. So please be very cognizant of that. Do you know what happened in Cornelius? I just remember the mayor was on TV, and yeah, they had shut the whole computer system of the whole town down because somebody clicked on something they shouldn't. So please be very careful. If you suspect something doesn't look right, don't click on it. Just delete it. If it's important, they'll get back to you. That's it. Thank you for everyone. Appreciate your time tonight. I think it was a good meeting, and sure we'll see you all guys all again at some point. Thank you.
Mount Moriah is about 5 churches that are involved in that. And Tanya Rivens is our moderator. We are asking all of you and all of the candidates that are running to be there and be able to have a first look at all the candidates running. Thank you so much. And if you got a flyer you want to share with some of those that are running, please feel free to share that with them so they can be there on time too as well too. Thank you so much, Mayor. For your prayers too. Amen.